Welcome to the Out of Office podcast. My name is Vanessa Farino, and I'll be your host. And I'm truly honored to have our very first guest for this new season, Juliana Hernandez. And let me tell you, this whole rebrand and episode and podcast has been happening for a year in the making. And I remember when I had this idea of the whole rebrand and all the things, I was like, Juliana has to be my first guest. I think I told you this.
You
If I
did.
Okay, I was
You
like, if I
did.
didn't, I'm like, I'm masterminding everything in my brain. I was like, I hope she doesn't think I'm great.
No, you did. I totally remember.
Okay, amazing. So, Juliana, welcome. You are the founder and CEO of Dez Collective. You are, you have an incredible background. You have a rich culture. Talk to us a little bit about little Juliana. Where did you grow up? What did you want to be when you were younger? And tell us a little bit about the business in a whole.
Well, number one, thank you for having me today, Vanessa. It's such an honor to be here. I'm grateful for your trust and also your support through myself and my business. As you mentioned, my name is Juliana Hernandez. I am the owner and founder of Dez Collective, which is a premier event furniture rental company, and we're located in Stoughton, Massachusetts. Growing up, we came from the Dominican Republic. So I'm Dominican. I was born in Dominican Republic. But I came here with my mom and my three sisters back when I was about 4 years old. My grandmother basically requested my mom through difficult times that she was facing there through domestic violence with my dad. My mom basically brought us from an overnight from one day to the next. And by the time that my dad even realized that we weren't there, we were already here in the US. Yeah. So basically, again, born in the Dominican Republic, but being raised here in the United States, only Boston. I've only lived in Boston other than the Dominican Republic, and I absolutely love it here. I feel like I would never go anywhere else. But it's been such a blessing, since coming here. I've always, as a young kid growing up, you don't really realize what your parents do for you until you grow up and you learn what life is really about when you actually become an adult. And even even in your 20s, you still don't even realize everything that your parents sacrificed. So me being the woman that I am today, the business that I have today, it comes through a lot of support and resilience and hustle that I have looked up to with my mom. So
Wow.
I'm very grateful to my main, who is my she, my why, part of my why, and my children.
Right. But you
And
also
here we
grew
are
up with your
today.
grandma.
Yes, we also grew up with my grandmother. When we first came from the Dominican Republic, we just, again, escaping the domestic violence isn't easy. We didn't have necessarily a place to stay and all that. It was just a matter of staying with my grandmother in a one-bedroom apartment in Dorchester with me and my three other sisters and my grandmother as well. So,
Talk about a humbling
yeah,
growing up humbly, right?
yes.
I think those stories are so, I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, I also didn't have much, right? So my parents divorced when I was very little. I was an adolescent. I moved back to my mom's country in Bolivia. I tell everybody I was born in Bolivia, by the way, so for the record. And then from there, my mom remarried. I went to military school, and then we were stationed in one of the smallest, tiniest pueblitos, village in Bolivia. I lived in a farm. So I always wonder, where does my fascination come from? Animals, because I'm I want a horse, I want sheep, I want goats. If you look at my TikTok feed, you're like, girl, why are you in the
Yeah.
farmland? But I do remember those were the most humbling upbringings of mine. And I remember even every morning there was the little el carrito with the leche, with the milk, right? That would just come out, and you'd trade your glass bottle for the glass bottle that you had fresh.
I love
Talk about
that.
fresh organic milk,
Oh my
right?
gosh.
And then I'd go play in the fields with the children in the village. And then I went to school, but the teachers were always on strike. So you really weren't in school. And I was like, that probably is the foundation of why I'm so rebellious. And I'm like, no, we can do better. There's
Yeah.
just a standard of being human and whatnot. But I can too relate because growing up, after attending military school, and then we moved back here to the US. And that's a story, and that's actually a fun story, but we'll share that for another day, of how we came back to the US. Just growing up in Boston. I grew up right outside in Everett. What city did you grow up in?
I grew up so we lived in Dorchester when we first came, but I mainly grew up in Hyde Park. Hyde
Nice.
Park was my city
Yeah.
from fifth grade all the way through high school.
Yeah.
Then I ended up moving back to JP, a couple cities.
Did you like school?
I hated school. Oh my I was literally like, okay, I was literally, so we had Spanish class, and I remember my teacher, like, to this day, bold as brass is what you called everyone. You're so bold as brass, bold as brass. And honestly, I think about what she's like that word today, and I'm like, yes, I am. Like,
Yeah.
I'm glad you
Yeah.
instilled that in me. You know what I
I'm
mean?
glad you realized. I'm glad you realized that about me. Yeah, I didn't like school either because I attended school in Bolivia. Everything that I had learned there when I came here, like I knew up till like the
Completely
sixth
different.
grade, right? Same,
Yeah.
because like the whole school system's very different.
Yeah.
But then I realized the one thing here was just so, it was different to, I don't know about you, but it was different for me. It was really hard for me to feel the fit in, like you belong, because I was like, brunette, dark, eyes, dark complexions. I don't know if that was the case for you growing up.
For me, growing up, the schools that I went to were very diverse. Like I remember going to the Black Stone and like the South End. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We lived very close to it. So the schools that I went to were very diverse, and I was able to. I was always like the friendly one, the friendly and always like helpful and just
Mhm.
wanting to do. I was a little rebellious at one point. I think in middle school was like my worst years, but I quickly got it together, and I was like, I had a good amount of friends. It was pretty cool for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So then what happened? Like, tell us, how did you go into the business? Like, you get out of high school? Did you go to college?
Very different. So from high school, I got pregnant at 17.
Mhm.
I had my son that say January. I turned 18 like 2 months later. So January 5th, 2003, I had my first child.
Do you have a Capricorn baby? I'm a Capricorn. That's like another level of love that we have here. Keep going.
Yeah, yeah. So, I was in a very bad relationship.
Mhm.
I was a teen. I only knew that this was the only person I wanted to be with. It was very new for me also, like the type of relationship, especially coming to have a kid. I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't prepared for any of it. All I knew is that I needed to take care of my son. I was in a bad relationship. It was abuse. It was, mental, physical, like everything. And so it was actually the first time I really say it all out in the public. I feel comfortable with you. This is why I share.
Thank-
And so, going through that, I always felt like I just needed a security. So my security right away was like the main job that women, in my eyes, at least in my opinion, believe that they go to, which is nursing. So right away, I put myself in Bryman Institute at the time, becoming
Yeah.
a medical assistant. I told myself that my dream was going to become a nurse at that time. Mind you, when I was in middle school, my dream was to become a police officer. I wanted to be a police officer.
Oh my
I
God, I
wanted to
could
be a
see that.
detective,
Oh my God, I
everything
could
in
see.
law.
Really?
I like binge watched Law and
Do you
Order and like
do you watch
all of those
Organized
shows.
Crimes?
Yes,
Oh,
everything.
I literally just got caught up yesterday with Stabler, and I was just like, I saw those 2 episodes, and I was like, my heart can't. I have to prepare for the podcast tomorrow. And I was like, keep going.
Yeah. So I mean, I took myself to again finding the security job that everyone wants to have, especially when having a
Right.
family. I didn't have a lot of support from the father and which I meet. My family, my mom was always there. My sisters were always there to help. But I started to go on my own. I moved out on my own with my best friend. We moved into this 3-family house in JP, and her with her daughter, me with my son. To this day,
No
they're best
way.
friends. So me and my best friend,
Wow.
we've been best friends since like elementary school, since like the
Wow.
third, fourth grade, I think it is. And so later on, just going into, I went all the way to nursing school, trying to be a registered nurse, all of that. And I just kept feeling like I still wasn't fulfilling a passion in my heart. More of like, I was liking what I was doing because I was helping people, and I was, like helping them feel like good again and helping me feel good because I'm just naturally want to like please and make sure somebody's good and all of that. So like more like, that nurse passion. But later on, I think like back in 2013, 2014, I was working at a dermatology office. And at the time, that's what I was starting to feel like, all right, I don't want to do this anymore. I
Mhm.
feel like I was giving my all and I was getting 25-cent raises. I told myself, all right, I'm just gonna put myself through this. I love to host events. My mom, actually, when we lived in Hyde Parks,
Yeah.
where I grew up, we owned a two-family home and we had a really, really big basement. So my mom ends up renovating the
No
basement.
way.
And
You
guess where
throw
all the
the
parties? So here I am, like elementary school, middle school, high school. Everyone's like coming to my basement to have these parties. I would
Yeah.
sneak down. I wasn't like allowed to be there all the time, but it was always so fun.
Wow.
So my house and my mom, were always like hosting. It's just, I feel like, again, when I look back at it today, I realize that this has always been inside of me. Like
Right.
it's been around me without even realizing, without me thinking twice, moving into my new home and all of that. I've always been the host. Like every time I will host every single holiday and not worry about the mess or anything
Yeah.
like that, all the
Yeah.
chaos. I just love having people around me, feeding them, like just having a good time and building memories together.
Right.
So at one point in 2014, I told my office manager at the time that I wanted to pursue, being a party planner. And it was so crushing because she was the one person that I did look up to. She was a female, she was the office manager. And at that time, she was like the highest person that I knew as a woman to have
Mhm.
such a high ranking job.
Right.
At that time,
Right.
I thought, she was the world. And her response to me was, you're never going to make enough money. You're not going to make what you make here. Why would you not go to nursing? It's not going to give you the same pay and all of that. And so it crushed me because, it's like they say, a lot of people put their fears of maybe that she wanted to do something different than what she was doing. And she
Right.
stayed with her security job. And little did she know, like me, my stubborn little butt, you're like, nobody tells me what to do. And
Don't take
my mom will
challenge.
tell you that you tell me to go right and I will go left
Nah.
because I know that what I want is at the left, not the right.
Right.
So here I am today with, Dez Collective.
Right.
I used to make 16.50 an hour back when I was done. And, I built a business with about 6 employees now, building to grow, go further, have expansion. And I actually just met with my business coach last Monday, and we just went over like our 5-10 year plan. And I can't wait to see it.
That's so incredible. That's so incredible. And thank you for sharing the story because you like mentioned a few little nuggets of like
Yes.
multiple things, but like mentorship, first of all. I think as women of color ourselves, we don't have that. At least I can speak for myself. I don't know about you,
No,
right? Like you mentioned that you had your
I didn't
office
have that.
manager that you were like, wow, this person is the woman who I see that has the highest ranking job or correct success in her career and whatnot. And it's really unfortunate because I also come from that too, right? It's like we don't see these women. And then later on in my career, when I did find these women, they were not nice. And I
Hmm.
know we hear and talk about all of this stuff. Like you'll hear it on social media and TikTok and et cetera. Like, why is it that we're getting this rep? Like, what are we actually doing about it? And I really think that we need to find more pairings of like mentorship and really understanding that if someone says something to you out of fear, which we know that office
Hmm.
manager then, if they say these things to us today, it's okay to say, I understand that you might not understand my vision, but I'm actually looking for support from you.
That
Right?
part.
Those type of things, because then it kind of checks them to put themselves like not to speak from their perspective. It's that you're actually needing to support. Whether you're
Yeah.
like, hey, like I want to be Tesla's number one competitor, instead of someone laughing to you and say, well, what can I do to help you?
Right, exactly. And so going into that, I've had a lot of challenges. I'm sure this is probably something that we'll talk about, but one point that I used to make when I do what am able to talk about my story and talk about my business and how I've come to my business is it is absolutely hard, right? So
Mhm.
I've been in business for over 12 years now. It's taken me 12 years to be where I'm at today,
Right.
and it wasn't through all, cakes and cookies and all sweets, right? We had a lot of sour apples and, not
Probably
nice
more sour
things.
apples
Oh,
and more
absolutely.
cries and more panic
Absolutely.
attacks, sleepless nights. And I know this is something
Yes.
we bonded over.
Yes.
We both spoke on a panel, and I remember that day. I think I turned to you and I was like, can we cry?
Oh my
Can we
God, we
sleep?
both
I don't know.
ended up crying.
it was just a moment, I think, from our both our respective worlds. We came in wanting to give, but our cups were a little bit empty, but we also poured into each other at that
Yeah.
moment.
What I One things that I do like about myself that again comes from my mom was how I've watched her raise three, four, right? Yeah, four young girls on her own with just the support of like her siblings.
Mhm.
She never gave up.
Mhm.
She never gave up on anything that she wanted to do. She went from, doing home interior, decorating people's houses, selling, like things from magazine, like I forget the name of it, but it was like one of the popular magazines that like all the Spanish people bought from.
Yeah.
And then she also worked a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
I used to go with her to like to clean the banks, and like she also worked at Sears and like had her like she had like three different jobs all at the same time. And it was all to like to make sure that we were good. I can't ever say like going back to my childhood and say that we missed anything. I mean, we had food on the table,
Right.
whether it was from the government or not, like we had what we needed.
Yeah.
Therefore, like, going through all those challenges, it brought me to where I am today.
Yeah. You just reminded me. I remember I used to help my mom sell Avon. Do you
Yes,
remember
that's what
Avon?
I sold Avon. That was one of my like side things when I had my son.
That's so wonderful. I really think I'm like these stories, right? Our mothers are so resilient. Our grandmothers are so resilient, even though they carry so much trauma. Like at the end of the day, all anybody needs is food on the table and a roof on
Hmm.
their head. And that most people don't have. So when people are breaking their head and stressed about all these other things, I'm like, you have food on the table and you have a roof on your head.
Yeah.
And you have and you have health, which also many people don't have. Everything else is figure outable. And I always ask people at some point or the other if they continue to have stress. I'm like, are you doing this to impress others or yourself? Because at the end of the day, it's like, it's you with you and not
Yeah.
against you because they're like, oh, it's you against you. It's no, it's you with you to support yourself, right?
Yeah.
It's like the little Juliana. It's like she's always hanging out. She's here with us right now. The little, Vane, she's also here right here. And we're having this conversation together to support,
Yeah. It really is. I had this conversation with myself. So I I'm very strong-headed, and I think I got built that way from my first relationship with my son's father. So I
Mhm.
had to do a lot of things on my own, and I've watched my mom do a lot of things on her own. So I've kind of grew up with that mentality of like be an independent woman. You know what I mean?
Right.
I had to take care of my son by myself,
Mhm.
of course with my mom's support, but
Right.
like I mean in the sense of like not having a partner there. Being able to be strong-minded and level-headed to the point that you are now looking at like, okay, what are your surroundings? What is the next step that you need to do? And being able to like checklist or make a small list and realize who's around you, what are the things that are around you that you're doing wrong, that you're doing right. And just making sure that everything is aligned with the future of what you want for yourself
Right.
first and then for your kids, because a lot of people I've gotten to realize that I wasn't always like that. I was always gives to the next person, gives to the next person. And like you said, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? So we
Yeah.
have to be able to be fulfilled ourselves
Right.
to continue to give to others, which is what I think you and I do a lot. I love that, you have your work sessions and things like that, like
Mhm.
bringing business women together, business community, going back to the mentorship that you talked about. Hello, we're
Yeah.
entirely Latin culture. That is not a
That's
thing.
not a thing.
Like I didn't grow up with that. You didn't grow up with that. I didn't grow up with someone
Mhm.
telling me how to do business. When by the time that I ended up knowing like, all right, this is what I want to do. Sorry, my mouth.
You're sure.
This is what I want to do. I had my own husband tell me like, no, we need money. Like you need to work. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna go to school. Like, I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Right.
Whatever needs to happen, like I'll be on the government. Like we'll do what we need to do. And that's exactly what happened. So, you know, being able to believe in yourself enough, regardless of what anybody else thinks around you, and being able to align yourself at the end of the day, regardless of who's supporting or not, is number one.
Mhm.
Because if you don't have the right people around you, if you don't know where you're going or what you want to do, you're not going to get very far.
Right.
So it's like, where do we go?
And the other thing is I often will have people are like, "Well, I don't know what to do." And I'm like, "Well, what are you doing?" They're like, "Nothing." I'm like, "Well, you're gonna get nothing what you want or you don't want through that process." And I'm sure you've had your handful of experiences like trying to figure out how you get to today. And like
Mhm.
going back to the whole mentorship, like I was very grateful. Like I come from working 15 years in the corporate world. I started as a receptionist before that, or through that process, like I transferred colleges and universities 3 times. Right. And I was like, I am so eager. I'm so ambitious. Like, I want to learn. I love marketing. I had one of my first businesses at age 15. I don't know if you know that. That's a fun fact. I had
No.
a retail clothing boutique. We were the one of 2 official retailers of Ed Hardy, which I know that line is coming back. So I'm like, it gets me so excited. But like I learned marketing, like back digital marketing era. So it's like a really cool foundation. Then we had the business. We had to move locations multiple times. My mom was my co-founder as well because the business kept growing. We didn't have enough parking. We didn't have enough inventory. But we didn't have this mentorship of like what it is that we do. Like, how do we get there? How do we not do
Yeah.
it? Fast forward, I went into corporate 15 years. And the one thing that I didn't know that I had in my very first corporate role was mentorship. So I worked as the financial assistant. I got promoted. It was like this corporate role here, One Beacon Street. And I remember when I applied for it, you needed a bachelor's, you needed all of these certifications, and I was supporting the financials of a company, like a multi-million dollar company. And I was like the only one who passed the test of this accounting because in high school I was taking 4 years of accounting, consumer economics, computer, like all of
Mhm.
these classes, like these post electives, and my peers were like, "What are you doing? Like, don't you want to get out, work, study, and like go to the park?" I'm like, "No, I want to learn the computer, and I want to learn this, and I want to learn that." Which helped me, and then it led me to this opportunity where I got hired, I got a salary, and I had benefits and vacation time, and I was just like, "Wow, I'm this is everything I've worked so hard for." Starting at $7.50. My first job was at Twist and Shake in Revere Beach, if you're familiar.
I don't think so.
I love that place. It's a small family-owned business, and from there, it brought me to this opportunity where I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm making $36,000 a year. This is everything. Like, I've made it." I stayed there for 4 years. I got promoted, and then when I changed opportunities for another 20K bump that I negotiated, I went to my next role, and I'm like, "Something's missing," and it was mentorship. I didn't know that.
Mm.
It's like, how do we call it out if we don't know what it is? And that's
Yeah.
purely the reason why I'm constantly giving back and pouring back to people. And I'm like, you must help. I don't care if you're opening up the door. I don't care if you are, buying someone coffee in front of you. Like I
There's so
love
many different ways
there's
to
so
help.
many different
And it doesn't
ways.
have to be monetary.
Right.
It can just be an advice, right? Someone came
Right.
into my office yesterday and they were talking about how, the location that they're in, it's not the same price rate as, where we are here in Boston. Boston,
Right.
it's very expensive as Boston, right?
Right.
So people pay a higher rate for everything out here. So, my advice to her was basically, well, let's look at what's going out. Let's look at, who is your clientele. And if you do want a higher, like the luxury clientele, then you may have to think about like relocating. It's
Exactly.
all about at the end of the day, what you put in is what you
Mm-hmm.
get, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you, don't give it your all, how do you expect, if you don't go to the store to buy the clothes, how are you gonna have the clothes
Right.
to put for
Right.
the interview that you need? If you don't
Exactly.
speak, if you don't, you go to a networking event and you're just, just walking around and you're shy, you can be shy, but if you're not saying at least hi to one person,
Mm-hmm.
I would say challenge yourself, which is all the things that I did to myself because
Yeah.
I like to stay at home. I like to binge watch. At the time, I feel like I haven't watched TV in ages, right? I
Yeah.
don't have, there's like no time to watch TV anymore. But there was a time that I, loved eating ice cream and just being at home and just like hosting events. And I feel like, there was a probably about a 4 year mark when I was first starting my business where I had to stop hosting events because I was never home. I was, especially on the weekends. I
Right.
gave up my weekends. During that time that I did start my business, I had my 7-year-old now. I had to leave her every single weekend. I left her at home with her
Yeah.
dad. So like that's a sacrifice that I did. I
Right.
sacrificed family time. To this day, I sacrifice family time. So also going back to saying, like it's not, apples and oranges. Like there's a lot that I still like look back or just think about right now. Like, oh my God, this is so stressful. Like, is this worth it? Sometimes I'll have like a second of a question and I'm like, what am I talking about? Like, of course it is. let's talk about where you are today and where you were 10 years ago.
Right.
You were making 1650. Now you're an employer to people. People
Families.
that, yes, families,
Right.
families who are supporting their families, who are also building their goals in their countries and doing other things for
You're
themselves. You know what I mean?
contributing to the economy, to society, to the community. And also, I think the most beautiful thing of that too is that now that you've employed these individuals in your businesses, those children, if they have any, or anyone around them, or it doesn't matter if they're children or not, they're also getting inspired what they're doing within your business. So it's
Hmm.
like this huge snowball effect, which I think is so
It's so cool. Like
cool.
right now, I have my goddaughter, my best friend's daughter.
Yes.
She's actually like interning with us,
Wow.
and I'm so happy. And my best friend tells me all the time, you know, she says you have no idea how much she looks up to you, and it just like it warms my heart because the things that I have, the person that I am, my character. And some people may say like, "Oh, you just want to be liked, or you just want to be nice to everyone." It's like this is how I grew up.
Mhm.
Like I've had challenges in my life, yes, but the one thing that I always look back at is how did I grow up? I came here when I was 4 years old. So yes, like my mom went through the things that she went through back in Dominican Republic, but I was too young to really understand that. It is not until now, maybe like a year or so, that I have really learned about these things and, actually understood them. But being able to have my goddaughter with me and, show her that here we are, this is what you can do as well. I want women to see me. I want Latin women to see me and say, because of you, I did it.
Mhm.
And I would cry. It's like I would be
Right.
so I could die tomorrow and I would be happy because
Exactly.
the person that watched me, the person that looked up to me, went on to do their dreams because they saw that I could do it because I didn't give up.
Right.
I don't want to give up so that you don't give up.
Right. Ah, that brings me into like all these categories of like self-employment and entrepreneurship. And I know we can talk about this forever.
Forever.
Right, forever. Can you talk a little bit to us about like what was those first steps of like self-employment? Like I don't think people really understand. When you are self-employed, now it's up to you who puts that roof over your head and the food on the table.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Marketing can do its own thing and it can be glamorized. Great girl. Everybody go quit your job. Everybody go follow your dreams. And then there's crickets after that. Like,
Hmm.
what were those first moments for you like?
Scary. I did not know what I was doing. I just knew what I wanted to do. It was again challenging because my partner didn't want me to do it because of financials. Of course,
Mhm.
we had two kids. We have a brand new house. And here I am gonna go to school, get on debt from zero to like $50,000 later, which is a whole other story as well.
Yeah.
Being able to know like whether it's for you or not, and if it really does anything for you in your career at the end of the day. But it was very challenging. He had to take out the full financial burden. I had to come in where I could help, applying for food stamps, applying for any help that came in.
Mhm.
Not you know not self-caring, not being able to do my nails for
Right.
years. For years. Like
Yeah.
people around me, friends, family, like they'd all do their self-care, like pedicures and things like that. And I'd be able to do it maybe like once a month, if that. And I had to like take care of my own. No hair, no makeup, nothing. Like whatever I did was on my own with my family, of course.
Right.
And so that can kind of like get you stressed and depressed and things like that, not being able to play a supportive role,
Right.
that it hurt me, but at the same time, I knew that everything that I was building was going to be for the greater good of all of us,
For the long haul.
not just my immediate family though,
Mhm.
like for my sisters, for my mom, for like whatever, like I built my business to want other people to come in and like bear the fruit of it as well.
Right.
And then here we go on to building that huge generational wealth that we could have. But those are the things that people don't know and didn't see, like I mentioned before, spending weekends from, let's say, 4 in the morning to all the way to 2, 3 in the morning, gone the entire day.
Right.
multiple days back to back.
Just working,
Just
working,
working.
working,
Just
working,
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 working, working.
building that dream.
Again, giving up, sacrificing family time. My
Mhm.
biggest sacrifice for with this business has been my family.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's easy to do
No.
to this day. It's a little emotional to talk about it because it still affects like how my two older kids grew up, what I could give to them. My two younger kids, obviously, like now I'm able because of everything that I did before. Now here I am on Saturday, my team is out, and here I am here. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it's like now I'm able to take my kids after this to the Museum of Ice Cream. You know what I mean? Go have
Yeah.
family time with the two little girls that I have.
Right.
Something that I couldn't do with my two oldest. So I used to get home, and sometimes when I did have a break in between, I would get home and say, "All right, you guys want to go to the movies?" And I'm exhausted, right?
Right.
Here I am like at 6 p.m. I got to go back out at like 10. So I'm like, all right, we have an hour. Let's go to the movies. I take them to the movies, come back. All right, go to bed and leave again to work.
Yeah. I appreciate you talking so much about this because it's also considered for like time management, right? When women in particular are considering starting their business or a passion project or whatever that might be, or transitioning into entrepreneurship, they're like, I just want to wake up and go to yoga class every morning. And I'm like, respectfully,
Yeah.
that is not the case. Actually, you have to be more disciplined, more structured. Every single minute on my calendar from 6 in the morning until 9 p.m. is allotted for every single morning because you need that structure. You need that discipline because if you're like, oh, I want to aspire to achieve all these things, that doesn't mean that you're not going to fail forward and go and, oh, yeah, everything's happening. Oh, look, everything happened great for Juliana and Vanessa.
Yeah. No.
Actually,
Yeah. Let me take you back.
yeah, you can follow us for the day. And I think that's really important to share, right? As an advice, like if you really want to do this for yourself, great. Start to learn how to have, discipline and structure because that is going to tell you what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. But then it's going to tell you also the things that you have to sacrifice. And are you willing to do that? And I will share publicly that when I blindsidedly got laid off from my corporate career, I was making beyond six figures. I had unlimited vacation time. I was like, I'm at the top of the world. This is incredible. I supported a $25 million fundraise. We were a very small team. And from there, I had just lost my dog. Unexpectedly, I lost one of the people on my team. And I didn't know that about 2 months later, I was losing my best friend. All three of them due to a heart attack.
Wow.
And I had a broken tailbone. I didn't take any time off during that time. And I'm like, I have unlimited vacation time. I have this huge paycheck and salary. What, like WTF, Vanessa, what are you
Yeah.
doing? You like, and I asked myself the question, I said, if my life were to have been taken, would I have been okay with it? And the answer was, hell no.
Yeah.
And it was this whole era of healing from different ways. And girl, I don't recommend it. It's like 5 stars for the soul, but 0 stars for the human experience because it's so ugly and it's physical,
Yeah.
from that whole perspective. And when I tell people, if you want to do this, I recommend you do this because you do it for yourself. You do it for those around you. You do it for the people in your family. And then you get to meet great, really freaking cool people like yourself.
Oh my gosh.
for
One
real.
of the best things about being an entrepreneur and being in the business that I am for events and like, hosting a lot is all the incredible people that I have met, including yourself, right? We really just connected 2 years now.
I think. I remember
And
sitting in assembly row. I was like shaking. I was like, oh my God, I'm speaking to the Juliana Hernandez. And like 5 minutes in, we're sobbing for like an hour. I remember just in the car having the conversation.
yeah.
And I was like, this.
It's been such an incredible journey. And again, like one of my favorite things about my business is so many people, so many great people that I have met.
Yeah.
Building a connection with someone and then building a connection with their people. It's just solid. It's genuine. Like those are the type of people that I want around me. Those are the type of people that also uplift me
Mhm.
without them realizing, right? So a lot of people say to me, because of you this and you connected me with this person. And so I make sure that everything that I receive and that gets put in front of me, whatever opportunity gets put in front of me, I'm able to bring somebody else on
Yeah.
because it is hard. And, you know, the way that I got into the rental business was because at the end of the day, just straightforward, someone did not want to rent me their items. Another woman in the same industry was like, no. Someone said no to me. And
Wow.
because someone said no to me, I've literally made it my mission to not say no to other women, regardless of whether they're doing the same thing as me or not. It does not matter to me. I'm doing a whole sale right now at my warehouse, like Dez, like spring sale, and there's other rental companies that are coming in and buying things.
Right.
If I was that person, I would be like, no, you're a competitor.
Right.
You can't consider people a competitor because you're losing focus on who you really are and what you're
Exactly.
building. And so to me, my only competitor, as cliche as it sounds, is myself.
Right.
Because again, the work that you put in is what you get.
Exactly.
So if I'm focused on somebody else or trying to not give to the next person, whatever I don't give, God will take away. And I'm a firm believer on, my success comes from a lot of resilience and faith. And so I feel like I'm proud of like what I've done, and I actually makes me very proud to connect people and to give to those the way that things weren't giving to me.
Right. Yeah. I totally agree with you because it's that it reminds us of where we came from and how we're paying it forward. And
Mhm.
I often will find people that I might not even know that I come across. It's like you're walking and the person just slammed the door in your face. It's like, really? Yeah. Okay. Well, I actually hope you have a fabulous day.
Yeah.
Because they need that. A lot of people are coming from places of hurtness, right? And without realizing that you actually have to change that around for yourself and for others, it's not going to get anywhere.
Mhm.
Let's talk about money. What was like one of the hardest, if not a few, of the things that you had to unlearn about money to support you, your business, and your journey? And I often work with clients who will say, I'm so excited to get to our, sales projections and look at our pricing and et cetera. And I was like, okay, great. Tell me about your relationship with money. And they're like, what do you mean? Right. And it's like, actually, there's a lot to do, especially if you're a woman of color.
Yeah. That was me.
Yeah.
What do you mean? What's money? Like I can't just spend it. It
Yeah.
doesn't just come.
Mhm.
Going into business, I had to learn that every dollar that I made, if I didn't put it back into my business, it was not going to build.
Mhm.
So, it's like investment. So you want to sleep and make money. We all want to sleep and make money, but how do we do that?
Right.
For me, with my business, I've learned to both things, right? Because it's not all this money comes in and I just invest, invest, invest. Sometimes I've had to, at times, even recently, pick and choose if I'm going to pay the rent
Mhm.
or if I'm going to buy this inventory that will create more money for me,
Right.
right? And I've chosen to buy the inventory because even though I'm not paying my rent, am I sacrificing that, right? I am buying this item that when it goes out, it's going to double, triple, quadruple my money back
Right. Give you a
eventually.
huge ROI so that
Right.
you can pay the
So
rent
that
and
I
years
can
down.
pay the rent, so that I can pay my employees, so I can
Right.
continue to proceed and grow, right? So it's just, you have to be real with yourself.
Yeah.
Obviously, don't go spend your business money on things that don't matter. You do need essentials. You do need all your things. I am not afraid to take a loan. I'm that, again,
Good. Yeah.
tell me to go right, I'm going to go left.
Yeah.
I'm that risk taker.
Right.
I'm not afraid of money anymore. I've learned not to be afraid of money anymore. I used to think like, no, I can't buy this, or at the same time, like, yes, I'll buy this and I'll just pay it later, blah, blah, blah. And that put me in a hole. So like that rearranged the way that I thought about money
Right.
when it came in. So now in my business, I make sure that what comes in, I'm aligning with what needs to be done. Yes, my employees come priority. I always make sure that I have money for them first, then the inventory, then the rent, then myself.
Right.
You put yourself always last. But how do you even think about, how to do that? And I've had to go through ups and downs. I had times where I had to give a check and say, hey, you can't cash that until next week.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout, it's experience. Anything that you do in life is just, you're going to learn how to deal with it. You're going to learn how to get better through your experiences. So through my experiences with money, I've learned that it is okay to take loans. It is okay to use credit and all of that. And
Yeah.
don't deprive your cash flow.
Mhm.
Keep your cash flow, because that is going to help you in other areas that, your credit won't. Keeping your credit good so that you're able to get more credit is number one.
Right.
My husband is very good at money, and he always tell me like, here you go again, or like, what are you doing with this? And I'm just like,
I'm building
trust
my
me,
business
trust me.
credit.
I'm like, trust me. And
Right.
it came like at one point last year, he's like, but we need to pay this and we need to pay this. And I'm like, no, no, no.
Not yet.
I said, we're gonna take this
Right.
and we're gonna add it to this. And then once we add it to that, it's gonna grow us. It's
Right.
gonna give us more credit. And then once we have that, then we'll take that and now we'll pay this.
Right.
And we'll continue to do that. So it's like a
Right.
cycle. How do you think the rich get rich? It's
Exactly.
not by
They don't
holding
put
onto
their
their
money.
savings
Yeah, they
account.
actually don't put their money.
They don't use any of their
Never
money.
use any of their money.
I read somewhere, I don't know if it's true, it might be false or anything, but at one point, JC and Beyonce, they had their house like a mortgage. They had a mortgage on their house. They didn't
Right.
full blown cash in on their house
Right.
because it's like, where's your cash flow? You know,
Mhm.
like save your cash flow because you never know what's happening.
Right.
And these
Right.
are conversations that I have like with my recent like entrepreneurs that are around me, and I'm always telling them like, they're like, no, I need to pay this bill, and I'm like, girl, forget the rent. Get the LLC because the LLC,
Right.
once you register it, now you can get more money. Now you can apply for
Exactly.
grants. Now you can do this. Forget the rent. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, like, don't take this advice as me telling you what to do.
Right. This is just
But this is
Juliana has
like
done
what
to grow
I
her
done
business.
for me. Like,
And to clarify, you pay all of your expenses. It's just on timing
yes.
where and how you're using the money because
Oh, of course.
basically what you're saying is like, okay, we have this in the bank and we have an opportunity to go do XYZ, and this is going to quadruple or triple this so that we can go back and pay
Exactly.
XYZ, get more employees, get the
Yeah.
intern, more.
I'm not saying take your money and
Yeah,
go
no,
to
no,
the
no,
club.
no. Yes, to clarify if anybody's thinking that. Talk to us a little bit about how the name Dez Collective came together and marketing for your end.
I had like 3 names before Dez Collective. I
Yeah.
think my very first name was Couture Events with a K.
Oh,
I think there's
okay.
still an Instagram page for that. Then I had like Blue Chic Events that I had like partner with one of my friends, and we thought we were gonna be like the 2 best party planners.
Right.
She later on decided that she didn't want to party plan anymore, and so I wanted to have my own creative name, and I just started thinking about like, all right, what is not basic, but what is simple? What is like a solid, and what is something that will create a brand for me and myself within my personal name. So I came up with Juliana Hernandez Events. I think it was something like
Yeah.
that. And then eventually I was like, this is so long and it's just my name. And like, I went from being a party planner. Now I'm no longer a party planner. Now I'm doing rentals. So it's like, what is this going to be? Juliana Hernandez Rentals? Like, it doesn't make sense. So it was like, going back and forth. And I ended up like, all right, Dez. Duh. Why didn't I think of that before? Right. And
Yeah.
so Hernandez comes from Hernandez, which is my last name.
Right.
It's just very short. It's catchy. And if people think it's my actual name, so everyone calls me Dez, which is totally fine. I don't get offended or anything because technically it is my name. And it's kind of cool.
I like that. Thank you for sharing the story behind it. I really am so into personal branding these last couple of years and marketing, and I'm so fascinated how digital marketing continues to evolve and how do we bring that to community. And I know particularly here in Boston, it's quite interesting. I'm going to change that the creator economy, personal branding, this type of digital marketing aspect of things is like not the norm, right? And I
Yeah.
totally understand that because, okay, we think about it we're a very traditional state. We are very academia, sports related, finance bros, which we all love, but there
Mhm.
also is space for places like ourselves, right? Especially people who are entrepreneurship is not really a thing here. When I travel all over the country, especially like Miami, New York, and the West Coast, people are like, what do you mean? It's not like that over there. We thought it would be like blossoming. And I'm like, no, hence why I'm always on an airplane trying to find all these other opportunities. But I want to talk about personal branding and how we've honed into this to be able to, there's so many different avenues, but then also to bring awareness to our businesses or to support other people. Like, how did you get started on that? Like, what did that do for you? I think, most importantly, there is the aspect of you accepting to be seen,
That
heard, and understood which takes so much healing, guys.
Yeah.
0 stars, but also 5 stars at the same time.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I was gonna go right into. I never thought about personal branding. I never wanted to be the face of anything at all. Again, I wanted to sit at
Same. I'm like
home,
super
like
introverted and all the things.
I wanna be the rich person that's behind the scenes, like the invisible, like,
Mhm.
wealthy and this has all these things going on that are
Works
helping
hard and
everyone.
all the things.
But I want to be invisible. I didn't
Yeah.
want anybody to know me. Little did I know, 2 years ago, honestly, it's just been 2 years that I started personal branding. The minute that I started to put myself out there, the
Mhm.
minute that I started to connect, to tell my story, so many other people were so relatable. So many other women were
Right.
relatable. I still haven't even really said my full story. I've
Right.
done like little snippets. Again, I just feel like some of it is still very delicate to me
Of
to put out
course.
there. But what I do like to put out there is that, when you put your best foot forward, what you give is what you get.
Yeah.
So personal branding to me opened up so many different doors. It made me have so many new connections. It made me have, like, just like this podcast interview, right? Where do we meet? And being able to show, this is my life, this is what I did. When people are relatable, they want to talk to you. When people are
Mhm.
relatable, they want to show you, because I feel like like you said, we have that same character in the sense that we want to help other women shine
Right.
and have their visions and their stories told, because it's like we need a group. We need to be able to, like, support each other.
And we need more by like the hundreds of thousands,
Oh, yes. Yes.
millions.
Absolutely. Like, there's
Yeah.
there's a full-blown community that I know is out there. A lot of people don't believe that personal branding is a thing that can help them in their business. But it has opened so many doors for me. I don't regret a thing. I was very hesitant when I started my business coaching. That was one of the first things that she threw out there, and I was like, absolutely not. It's like, I'm not doing that.
Take
All
that
I
off the
want,
table. We're not doing
yeah.
that. Talk about all the
I literally, she had to, like, hone me, like, no, you need to do it like that. And we started to do a small photo shoot and, tell small little snippets here and there. And little did I know, like, the one person that I did, wanted to listen to, she was correct the entire time,
right.
that I was like, no,
Yeah.
it pays to listen, I guess.
Right. And it takes a lot of investing. And there's an understanding of it's not just the photo shoot that's pretty and makes us look great. It's understanding, your story and going through that process and then really understanding what are you comfortable with sharing. You don't have to share
Yeah.
everything. When people are like, no, I'm a private person. Oh, believe it. Believe it or not, we are too. Oh, I'm an introvert. We are too.
Yeah.
And if you desire, you can I've taken 6 boot camp for public speaking and media trainings thus far. Cause like that's how much I used to shiver when I was speaking in front of people or had cameras in front of me, and I still get nervous. But then at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm here to have a conversation with another human. And
Mm-hmm.
if that touches one person, great. And if that touches 100 or 1,000, even better, and that is really the whole purpose of that. So I'm grateful for you talking about that, which leads us to you're going to be one of our speakers for the
Yes, I'm
Women's
so
Summit.
excited.
It's happening in a couple of
One of the
weeks.
things that personal branding also opened up. So it was one of the things that, again, my business coach, she's like, what are you doing? Like, open me to personal branding. And then as I started doing that, it's like, oh, will you come speak? As you start to tell your story, people want to listen more.
Right.
And it makes me feel good because I know that what I'm saying and what I'm speaking about, regardless of whether I'm saying my entire story or just snippets, it's helping other women become more confident in what they
Right.
want to say and what they're doing and building their own success.
Yeah, I have to say, between traveling all over the country, doing these out of office, co working days, the number one thing that I see is women do not practice enough using their voice within each
No.
other. Never mind us having opportunities to have podcasts or speaking opportunities. And then, you have these things, these industries that are so dominated and monopolized by other people. And they're like, well, why don't we have a chance? I'm like, are you getting the media training? Are you doing your
Hmm.
personal branding? Do you have a website? Do you have this? Do you have that? And that's why we're so passionate about this. And hence why, Power Women Summit is so focused
I can't
on
wait.
that this year. So I'm
I can't
super
wait.
pumped. Okay, wrapping up, we have 60 seconds. I want to ask you fireside chat questions. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. What are you currently listening on repeat right now?
Bad Bunny. Débil tirar
Oh
más
my gosh.
fotos. Who is not?
For sure. I love Bad Bunny. And we only have like 20 seconds. Okay. Guilty pleasure for a show or a snack. I know you talked about Law and Order, but
Snacks.
let's talk any
Ice
particular
cream.
snack. Okay.
Ice cream all day.
Gelato or regular ice cream?
Regular.
Okay.
Strawberry.
Fantastic. Do you know your astrology sign?
Pisces.
And do you own it?
I try.
Love that. If we had a private jet right now, I'd be like, Juliana, your calendar is clear for the next 24 hours. Your kids are coming. Because like, he's screaming them after. Where are we going?
Africa.
Really?
Africa.
Oh my gosh. Okay. What is your favorite form of multitasking? Have you ever tried the mani-pedi in the laptop, the dry bar and the laptop, or do you get on an Uber and work? What does it look like for you?
Multitasking this morning. Makeup, hair, laptop.
It's so incredible. What are the like main top items in your bag?
Ooh, lip gloss, Summer Fridays, chocolate, my AirPods, and my car keys.
Oh, that's nice. What is the last thing you shop for at Amazon?
Silk florals for my kitchen.
Ooh. Juliana, thank you so much for being
Thank you
here.
for
It was an
having.
absolute honor. Always to see you.
Always.
And we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
For tuning into the Out of Office podcast rebrand new season.
We did.